So when we saw the Spider-Man 2 showcase at the Sony's big event, it was interesting that one aspect of this has not necessarily been explored, in my opinion anyways, here in the Spider-Man community. You see, when we look at this area where Kraven is so-called hunting or stalking this warrior, character, and then basically just offs him with so much ease, it's interesting to see that he's still in this position where he wants to continue his little ethos that he's always had in all of his, fictional work in media and in books and so on and so forth. He just wants to hunt something. And he's somewhat disappointed with his compatriots. That's basically his little crew as to how they're not able to get him someone that will give him a challenge. But they eventually already have that underneath their sleeves. They don't say anything until he's like, man, you guys are really, slacking. And they bring him New York, where Spider-Man and Miles actually are. But in this little thing, they scroll through a bunch of different characters: Black Cat, Tombstone, Prowler, Wraith, and so on and so forth. And it brings me to a place where we're asking the question, how are we going to see these characters being represented in this Spider-Man game? You see, this is now the third iteration of a Spider-Man game. And if the team at Insomniac is trying to, in a sense, establish and solidify themselves as a development studio that's able to represent a superhero in as much of a breadth of the entire, conversation as they can, then I think that some of these characters that we got to see ought to be playable once the game is launched. This is a very interesting aspect of the conversation, and I'm making it because at the end of the day, Spider-Man, this, 2018 iteration and Miles Morales game and the remastered and this Spider-Man 2 games are kind of having to live in the shadow of the Arkham games. Now, what I mean by this is not that the Spider-Man games are not as good as the Arkham games. That's a subjective argument. I'm a Batman fan, so I would tell you that, yes, I think the Batman games are good in most aspects, but you, the Spider-Man fans, would disagree with me. What I'm saying is the Arkham games, in a sense, they came first with that quality. But the Spider-Man games have been able to show their quality and so on and so forth, but there are still a few aspects that I think have not yet been established, which if you've even seen this showcase, you can tell that Insomniac is going for. And that is the multiple protagonist, multiple playable character paradigm. Already you're seeing that they're not only showing you gameplay as Peter or Venom or whomever it is, they're showing you gameplay as Miles as well. So basically letting you know that you can play as these two characters. But there are surprises that I think the developers are more than likely holding back. And those surprises are probably going to be seen very soon. And I'm hoping that one of them is that we can, as the Arkham games were able to allow for you play as Catwoman, we can play as, say, Black Cat or maybe as Wraith. You see, the Arkham games were able to bring this extra protagonist angle, and they started it out with Arkham City, but by the time they got to their third game in the series, Arkham Knight, you could play as Harley Quinn, you could play as Nightwing, you could play as Batgirl in a full-fledged DLC, you could play as Nightwing, and you could play as Robin. At least you could play as Robin, actually, here in Arkham City. There was a DLC for Robin as well. I think, and, bear with me, ladies and gentlemen, and I know, that this is probably what it is that Insomniac has under their sleeves for us as we're going to be experiencing this particular game. In fact, I think it's not just going to be something that is a matter of, okay, maybe fans are saying this is something we want to see as a matter of preference, but I think this is something that's really going to be cool and is really going to go ahead and take this game into the next level of the crescendo. Because we've already gotten, a taste of what it was that they were working on pre-2018. They talked about this game years before. They were developing it and working on the game years before. The game was released. The game was a solid game, loved by the fans. Then they brought out the Miles Morales game, which expanded on some different aspects. So you now had a secondary character. And now with this second game, it looks like they're going for the utter destruction of everyone's expectations. So if they want to really do that, I strongly believe, and I argue that at least we should be able to play as Black Cat or Wraith in this next Spider-Man game, even if it's for a short period of time. Now, hear me out. I know many people might be like, but what's the point? We already got Venom, we already got Miles, and so on and so forth. I get it, ladies and gentlemen. I understand. But here's the thing. Remember, in 2018, a lot of people did not necessarily like another playable character that was in the game. It wasn't necessarily because of much. It was just a mission structure that a lot of people were not really fond of. And I was playing as MJ. A lot of people did not want to play stealth MJ. A lot of people would have preferred to play a character that had equal action in the game itself. And yes, we did get some sort of a collaboration by the time we got to the DLC, where Black Cat and Peter were actually, in a sense, collaborating with one another and taking down bad guys, which is also some sort of an iteration of what you got to see in the Arkham games, by the way, where Batman and Robin are pretty much dealing with all those Jokers that get lost in that little park area. I don't know if you guys remember this story beat, but there's an entire mission structure where you and Robin are pretty much looking for these, Joker-based characters who've been infected with his blood and his condition that he had. So this, to me, is going to pretty much signal that the developers at Insomniac are wanting to go this direction. I strongly believe, and I'm making this case because I think it's really going to highlight the prowess of their work. In fact, I also think that this might be the beginning of, say, possibly other characters that we don't necessarily see video games on, possibly be used to make short iterations of other titles. Insomniac's not shy from making short games at all. In fact, they welcome the opportunity to make games that are shorter. They did it with Miles Morales. They did not hold back with making that character a 7-hour game. I know people were probably not, too fond of it, but they went ahead and they did it because in the Arkham games, you could already see that with the DLC beats, like, Robin's DLC beat where he goes in to look for, Batman in Arkham City, or even Batgirl's DLC beat where she goes in to also try to figure out what's going on with the Joker and so on and so forth. This is, in my opinion, something that I think Insomniac is definitely going to benefit from. But I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. What do you think about being able to play these characters as a Spider-Man game launches? Do you think that it's something that, would really make the game have a different extra layer? Do you think they should show up as DLC characters with their own story beats, something that's related to the Spider-Man story? Maybe one of them or some of them encounter Kraven before, or encounter Venom before he and Peter are in this little weird, merger and so on and so forth. Fly on with with your ideas in the comment section. I really would love to read them. Thanks so much for watching the video. Peace out.